Peace and love, my friends. Good morning from the coast of Maine. And I've got some birds singing out there. Hope you can hear them. Turn them down a little bit this morning. What we're going to do here this morning, welcome by recording, welcome live. Thanks for being here live. What we're going to do this morning is self-study. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. What that is. Where are those glasses that are? So if you're just joining us, really what we're after here is meditation time, but we do some teaching as well from the ancient mystics. And on Wednesdays, we've been studying Kriya Yoga, as we do on Tuesdays at our Zoom class, much more in depth. But on Wednesdays, we do a little bit of exploration of Kriya Yoga through the Yoga Sutras. And the Yoga Sutras are thousands of years old, still in print because they work. That's why they're still in print. People use them because they're effective. And today we're already up to book 2, and we're going to cover book 2, Sutra 2.1. And in summary, it's about purification, self-study, and surrender. And purification is really not about living a highly structured life of purity. Like it comes to mind the purity movement from the Christian church some decade ago or so, about the promise to remain a virgin until marriage. It was something like the purity movement. And it's not that kind of purity we're talking about. What we're talking about is a purity of mind, a clarity of mind. And so the Yoga Sutras encourage us that, as a matter of fact, the whole thing is about learning how to clarify the mind. Have you ever made ghee, clarified butter? You put butter in a pot and you boil it and you scoop off the fat, and then you have clarified butter. And that's kind of what we're doing with our minds. We're clarifying our minds. We're purifying our minds of our own attachments to our own thoughts. And that's really all that this is a way to control one's own thinking, or in this case, stop the thinking and just be. And it's still walking. I talked about this the other day. Still walking is always falling and moving through the center of balance. I was a stilt walker for a long time on those skinny, tiny theater stilts. And it's always falling. Stilt walkers are always falling. It's all about the control of the fall and the passing through the center of balance. So I'm always going back to the center, into the center of balance, falling into the center of balance, falling. And this is what meditation is like. The practice of purification is this control of the thoughts passing through the space of silence and back through the space of silence again. It's a cumulative thing. And the more that one practices the purification, the clarification of the mind, the better one's balance is, one's center point in that space between the words, which is why in our practice, I encourage people to pause at the top of the breath, pause at the bottom of the breath, because in the pauses, if you're using a chant or a prayer, in the pauses, that's where some silence is. So you get a little bit of silence up here, balance, a little bit of silence down here, balance, passing through these centers of silence. And the self-study that is talked about in book 2.1 is, well, it's the finding of the balance. It's not the study of the little self, it's the study of the higher self. And how do we study the higher self? There's basically 2 ways. There's scholarship, you read a lot. And what do you read? Well, I recommend the ancient literature, because the ancient literature has stood the test of time, rather than running off after someone who may or may not know what they're talking about. I mean, the books stay in print because they work. And then once you study the ancient people enough, you can tell which modern people, like Thich Nhat Hanh, for instance, Adyashanti, for instance, these people who have pursued the purification of their mind and have achieved some clarity and allowing the presence of the now, the divine, the isness, the presence of the energy of the spirit to be present with them. And that thing is the self-study, the capital S study. So the entire process of meditation is, well, it could be It is, if you're in pursuit of this, if that's your intent, it is. You might just be meditating for stress control, and that's cool. But if you're in pursuit of the oneness of being, then the purification of mind naturally leads to the study of self. And the study of self, the self is the highest self, capital S self. And then the last thing in this is surrender in book one. Book two, number one. Surrender to what? Well, in the process of meditation, you're surrendering your attachment to yourself in the breath and mental focus practice, in the spaces of silence, in the spaces between the words, in the silence there. It's a surrendering of the egoic self, or the attachment to the egoic self, the identity of the self, into this silent space. And this is a training for the surrendering into the supreme being. It is actually the same thing. Surrender, surrender, surrender. And I know that in Mount Athos in Greece, at one of the monasteries above the door jamb, it says, if you die before you die, then when you die, you will not die. If you die before you die, then when you die, you will not die. And this is all about the death of the attachment to the self. It makes dying so much easier, but it also makes living so much easier. Because, and I'm going to read a translation here now that we've covered some of what's in it. Accepting the austerity of mind. So this takes self-discipline. There's no way around this. Either you get the discipline to practice meditation or you don't. And it's not a judgment, because some people have a mind that doesn't like that, and so adopt some other kind of practice, maybe a walking practice or a gardening practice or a painting practice, where you're into the flow itself, and you're not using language, you're just using, maybe you're chanting while you're walking, but maybe you're using the paint and the attention to the canvas and the brush stroke as you're centering meditation. But accepting austerity of mind as purification. So this austerity of mind, the control of the mind thought patterns, leads to this purification, which is this spaces of emptiness. Self-study and study of sacred books and scriptures, and surrendering with dedication. So this surrendering isn't just to the divine being, it's surrendering to the outcome of the action. And this is an important thing. It's important because the goal of yoga meditation isn't union. The goal of yoga meditation is the control of the mind, so union self-asserts. And so you have to let go of the idea of where you're going to get, because it's super impossible to explain anyway. But you can discipline yourself with dedication to this practice of surrendering. And meditation is the practice of surrendering. And then what happens is that you surrender yourself to the oneness of being. It just comes of its own. I think you have to have, in order to attain satori, one has to have the desire for satori. But when you have satori, you can't have the desire for satori. I'm speaking in the Zen kind of language. You can have the desire for heaven, but to attain heaven, at the very gate of heaven, you have to give up the desire, because that is a self thing, lower self thing. But you have to have the lower self and the action of the practice to create the purification through dedicated practice, which basically means regular practice over a long period of time. And that produces the clarity of mind, the purification, the study of self, the reading of other scriptures, which leads to this practice of surrender in every breath, or as you move to the center of balance, which leads to the capacity for ultimate surrender to the presence of the divine energy. And it's not as clear cut as that, because there can be these little surrenderings too. It's not just at the end goal is this major awakening. It's these little tiny awakenings along the way as well. I hope that's helpful, people. As explanation, let's see. Hey, Susie, good to see you here this morning. Hey, Janet, sent you an email this morning, Janet. Let's see. So I was thinking about beginners, intermediates, advanced people. If you're new here in meditation practice, and I want to get to it because I like to practice. That's what this whole thing is here for. If you practice a centering prayer style, breathing in, breathing out, have a prayer, have a chant. When your mind wanders, come back to your breath and your chant, your prayer. Let your thought ride on your palm gently, right on your breath. Your breath is your palm is your breath, your thought is the butterfly. Let it sit there gently and ride it into your belly. Repeat it over and over again, 10,000 times. And if you get bored, it's because actually you're not doing the meditation. Meditation, how can you can't be bored in meditation if you're meditating because your mind self is preoccupied with the attention itself. And then if you've been here as an intermediate, continue that hammock practice that we talked about, the tension and relaxation of the Kegel muscles, right? So on the inhale, relax, tension, compression. Keep your mind in the muscles. Keep your mind in the muscles on relaxation and compression. Practice that for a while. Go back to your chant. And if you're a more of an advanced person, you can add the lower abdomen that we talked about at Yoga Sutras, Kriya Yoga yesterday, with tensioning I keep thinking the shield wall, but really it's belly lock. You can make a belly lock, and when you breathe into your root, relax that root and then tension that, and you get the whole thing locked up. Practicing with that Kegel muscles and contraction, and your six pack in contraction, because you do have a six pack. Even if you get a little belly, you still get a six pack underneath it, because those are muscles and you can feel them. And tension that and then relax. Okay, hope that's helpful, everyone. Let's get to it. Janet also has. Hey, Ken, good to see you. All right, I'm going to turn the birds down. Did you like the birds today? Can you even hear them? Let me know. I have a new way to control that. I'm going to quiet them right down to nothing. I'll fade them out. Go to mute. Okay, that is. I've been trying to figure out how to control those and keep them present and not blast people away, but I love listening to them. All right, I almost went off on a science tangent about bird language, but I won't. My eyes are closed. My feet are flat on the floor. My hands are in this moolah. If your eyes are open again for a second. Breathing into my belly, relaxing. If you're a beginner, let's begin with a few ohms this morning, filling your belly and your lungs. Feel the vibration in your chest. Into your own practice. Peace and love, everyone. Again, peace and love. Thanks for being here. See you soon.